Good morning. This is part 2 in the reading of the Poetic Edda. This time we will be reading the sayings of the High One, also known as the Havamal. The preface on here: human social wisdom, teasing allusion to runic mysteries, spells, and charms, combine in this poem to give a conspectus of different types of wisdom. Most of the poem is taken up with instruction on the subject of social behavior, common sense and folly, moderation and friendship, composed in, and I can't pronounce that, Hiddahatter, the usual meter of wisdom verse. At times the poet steps forward to speak in his own voice. At times the first person merges with Odin, the god of wisdom, speaking from his own experience of questing after knowledge. The wisdom stanzas are organized by themes, connections made by juxtaposition or contrast. Towards the end of the poem, Odin speaks more of his sacrifice to learn the secrets of the runes and of his knowledge of spells. The magical subject matter is related in a different meter. Earlier, Odin narrates two adventures with women, Billing's girl who outwits him, and Gunnlod, whose love he exploits to win the mead of poetry. Sayings of the High One, Havamal, is no doubt a redaction of several different poems unified by the theme of wisdom and the central figure of Odin. And once again, it is from the Caroline Larrington translation. Alright. All the doorways before one enters should be looked around, should be spied out. It can't be known for certain where enemies are sitting in the hall ahead. Blessed be the givers, a guest has come in. Where is he going to sit? He's in great haste, the one who by the log stack is going to try his luck. Fire is needful for someone who's come in, and who's chilled to the knee. Food and clothing are necessary for the man who's journeyed over the mountains. Water is needful for someone who comes to a meal, a towel and a warm welcome, a friendly disposition if he could get it, speech and silence in return. Wits are needful for someone who wanders widely. Anything will pass at home. He becomes a laughingstock, the man who knows nothing and sits among the wise. About his intelligence no man should be boastful, rather cautious of mind. When a wise and silent man comes to a homestead, blame seldom befalls the wary. For no more dependable friend can a man ever get than a store of common sense. The careful guest who comes to a meal keeps silent with hearing finely attuned. He listens with his ears and looks about with his eyes, so every wise man spies out what's ahead. He's lucky, the man who can get himself praise and goodwill. Very difficult it is when a man lays claim to what's in another's breast. He's lucky, the man who keeps in himself praise and wit while he lives. For bad advice men have often received from another's breast. No better burden a man bears on the road than a store of common sense. Better than riches it will seem in an unfamiliar place, such as the resort of the wretched. No better burden a man bears on the road than a store of common sense. No worse journey provision could he carry over the plain than overmuch drinking of ale. It isn't as good as it's said to be, ale for the sons of men, for the more a man drinks, the less he knows about his own mind. The forgetfulness heron it's called, who hovers over ale drinking, he steals a man's mind. With this bird's feathers I was fettered in the court of Gunnlod. Drunk I was more than drunk, at wise Filars. That's the best about ale drinking, that afterwards every man gets his mind back again. Silent and thoughtful a prince's son should be, and bold in fighting. Cheerful and merry every man should be, until he comes to death. The cowardly man thinks he'll live forever if he keeps away from fighting, but old age won't grant him a truce, even if spears spare him. The fool stares when he comes on a visit. He mutters to himself or hovers about. But it's all up with him if he gets a swig of drink. the man's mind is exposed. Only that man who wanders widely and has journeyed a great deal knows what sort of mind each man controls, he who's sharp in his wits. Let no man hold on to the cup, but drink mead in moderation. Let him say what's necessary or be silent. No man will scold you because you go off early to bed. The greedy man, unless he guards against this tendency, will eat himself into lifelong trouble. Often when he comes along among the wise, the foolish man's stomach is laughed at. Cattle know when they ought to go home, and then they leave the pasture, but the foolish man never figures the measure of his own stomach. He's a wretched man of evil disposition, the one who makes fun of everything. He doesn't know the same thing he ought to know, that he is not devoid of faults. The stupid man stays awake all night and worries about everything. He's tired out when this morning comes, and all's just as bad as it was. The foolish man thinks that everyone is his friend who laughs with him. He doesn't notice, though, they say nasty things about him when he sits among the wise. The foolish man thinks that everyone is his friend who laughs with him, but then he finds when he comes to the assembly that he has few to speak on his behalf. The foolish man thinks he knows everything if he cowers in a corner. He doesn't know what he can say in return if people ask him questions. The foolish man in company does best if he stays silent. No one will know that he knows nothing unless he talks too much. But the man who knows nothing does not know even if he is talking too much. Wise he esteems himself who knows how to question and how to answer as well. The sons of men cannot keep secret what's going on around about folk. Quite enough baseless blather comes from the man never silent. A quick tongue, unless held in check, often talks itself into trouble. Into a laughing stock no man should make another if he comes to visit the household. Many a man seems wise if he isn't asked questions and he manages to lurk unscathed. Wise that man seems who retreats when one guest is insulting another. The man who mocks at a feast doesn't know for sure whether he shoots off his mouth amid enemies. Many men are devoted to one another, and yet they fight at feasts. Amongst men there will always be strife, guests squabbling with guests. An early meal a man should usually eat unless he is visiting friends. He sits and gazes round hungrily, acts as if he's starving, and doesn't make conversation. It's a great detour to a bad friend's house, even though he lives on the route. But to a good friend's house the ways lie straight, even though he lives far off. A man must go, he must not remain a guest always in one place. The loved man is loathed if he sits too long in someone else's hall. A farm of your own is better, even if small. Everyone's someone at home. Although he has 2 goats in a twig-roofed room, that is still better than begging. A farm of your own is better, even if small. Everyone's someone at home. A man's heart bleeds when he has to beg for food for himself at mealtimes. From his weapons on open land, no man should step 1 pace away, for it can't be known for certain out on the road when a man might have need of a spear. I have never found a generous man, nor one so unstingy with food, that he wouldn't accept what was given, for one so open-handed with possessions, that he disliked a gift when offered. His piled-up property a man shouldn't go without. What you meant for those you love is often safe for those you hate. Much goes worse than is expected. With weapons and gifts, friends should gladden one another, those which can be seen on them. Mutual givers and receivers are friends for longest, if the friendship keeps going well. To his friend a man should be a friend, and repay gifts with gifts. Laughter men should accept with laughter, but return deception for a lie. To his friend a man should be a friend, and to his friend's friend too. But no man should be a friend to the friend of his enemy. You know if you've a friend whom you really trust, and from whom you want nothing but good, You should mix your soul with his and exchange gifts. Go and see him often. If you've another whom you don't trust, from whom you want nothing but good, speak fairly to him, but think falsely, and repay treachery with a lie. Again, concerning the one you don't trust, and whose mind you suspect, you should laugh with him and disguise your thoughts. A gift should be repaid with a like one. I was young once, I traveled alone, and then I found myself going astray. Rich I thought myself when I met someone else, for man is the joy of man. Generous and brave men live the best, seldom do they harbor sorrow. But the cowardly man is afraid of everything. The miser always worries when he gets gifts. My clothes I gave out in the field to 2 wooden men. Champions they thought themselves when they had clothing. The naked man is despised. The fir tree withers that stands on the farmstead. Neither bark nor needles protect it. So it is with the man whom no one loves. How should he live for long? Harder than fire between bad friends burns fondness for 5 days. But it dies down when the 6th day comes, and all that friendship goes to the bad. A man need not give only a big gift when you buy praise with a little. With half a loaf and a tilted cup, I've got myself a companion. Of small sands, of small seas, small are the minds of men. Thus all men aren't equally wise, half not, everywhere. Averagely wise a man ought to be, never too wise, for those men have the best sort of life who know a fair amount. Averagely wise a man ought to be, never too wise, for a wise man's heart is seldom cheerful, if he who owns it is too wise. Averagely wise a man ought to be, never too wise. Let no one know his fate beforehand, for he'll have the most carefree spirit. One brand takes fire from another until it is consumed. A flame's kindled by flame. One man becomes clever by talking with another, but foolish through being reserved. He should get up early, the man who means to take another's life or property. Seldom does the loafing wolf snatch the ham, nor a sleeping man victory. He should get up early, the man who has few workers, and set about his work with thought. Much gets held up for the man sleeping in the morning. Wealth is half won by activity. Of dry wood and thatching bark a man can know the measure, and of the wood which one can get through a quarter or a half year. Washed and fed a man should ride to the assembly, though he may not be very well dressed. Of his shoes and breeches no man should be ashamed, nor of his horse, though he doesn't have a good one. He snaps and cranes his neck when he comes to the sea, the eagle to the ancient ocean. So does a man who comes among the multitude and has few people to speak for him. Asking and answering every wise man should do, he who wants to be reputed intelligent. One shall know as second shall not. The whole world knows if 3 know. Every man wise in counsel should use his power in moderation. For when he mingles with the brave, he finds that no one is boldest of all. For those words which one man says to another, often he gets paid back. Much too early I've come to places, but sometimes too late. The ale was all drunk, or sometimes it wasn't yet brewed. The unpopular man seldom hits right on the moment. Here and there I might be invited home when I had no need of food at mealtime, or 2 hams would be hanging in a trusty friend's house when I'd already eaten 1. Fire is best for the sons of men, and the sight of the sun, his health if a man can manage it, living without disgrace. No man is completely wretched, even if he has bad luck. One man is blessed with sons, another with kinsmen, another has enough money, another feels good from his deeds. It is better to live than not to be alive. It is the living man who gets the cow. I saw a fire blaze up for the wealthy man, and he was dead outside the house. The lame man, the lame man rides a horse. The handless man drives a herd. The deaf man fights and succeeds. To be blind is better than to be burnt. A corpse is of no use to anyone. A son is better even if he is born late, when the father is dead. Seldom do memorial stones stand by the wayside unless one kinsman raises them for another. Two are destroyers of one, the tongue is the head slayer. Hidden under every fur coat I expect to find a hand. Night is eagerly awaited by him who can rely on his provisions. Short are a ship's yards, changeable are autumn nights, many kinds of weather in 5 days, and more in 1 month. The man who knows nothing does not know this, that many are fooled by money. One man is rich, another is not rich. He should not be blamed for that. Cattle die, kinsmen die. The self must also die. But the glory of reputation never dies for the man who can get himself a good one. Cattle die, kinsmen die. The self must also die. I know one thing which never dies, the reputation of each dead man. Fully stocked folds I saw for Fitting's sons. Now they carry a beggar's staff. Wealth is like the twinkling of an eye. It is the most unreliable of friends. The foolish man, if he manage to get money or the love of a woman, his arrogance increases, but not his common sense. On he goes deeply sunk in delusion. That is now proved when you ask the runes of divine origin, which the great gods made and the mighty sage colored. Then it is best for him if he stays silent. At evening should the day be praised, the woman when she is cremated, the blade when it is tested, the girl when she is married, and the ice when it is crossed, the ale when it is drunk. In a wind one should cut wood, in fine weather row on the sea. In darkness chat with a girl, many are day's eyes. Use a ship to glide along, a shield for defense, a sword for blows, and a girl for kisses. By the fire one should drink ale, one should slide over the ice, buy a lean horse and a rusty blade, fatten the horse at home, and the dog at someone else's. The words of a girl no one should trust, nor what a woman says, for on a whirling wheel their hearts are made, deceit lodged in their breasts. A breaking bow, a burning flame, a gaping wolf, a cawing crow, a grunting pig, a rootless tree, a rising wave, a boiling kettle, a flying dart, a falling wave, ice of one night, a coiled serpent, the bed talk of a woman, or a broken sword, the playing of a bear, or a king's child, a sick calf, an independent-minded slave, a seer who prophesies good, a newly killed dead man. An early sown field no man trust, nor too soon in a son. The weather rules the field and brains the sun, both of them are risky. A brother's killer if met on the road, a house half burned, a too swift horse. The mount is useless if a leg breaks. Let no man be so trusting as to trust all these. Such is the love of women, of those with false minds. It's like driving a horse with spiked shoes over slippery ice. A frisky 2-year-old badly broken in, or like steering in a stiff wind a rudderless boat, or trying to catch when you're lame a reindeer on a thawing hillside. I can speak frankly, since I have known both. Men's hearts are fickle towards women. When we speak most fairly, that we think most falsely, that entraps the wise mind. He has to speak fairly and offer precious things, the man who wants a lady's love. Praise the body of the radiant woman, he who flatters gets. No man should ever feel reproach another for being in love. Often the wise man is seized when the foolish man is not, by a desire arousing appearance. Not at all should one man reproach another for what is common among men. Among men's sons the wise are made into fools by that mighty force, desire. The mind alone knows what lies near the heart, and he is alone with his spirit. No sickness is worse for the sensible man than to find no contentment in anything. That I found when I sat among the reeds and waited for my beloved. Body and soul the shrewd girl was to me, nevertheless I didn't win her. Billings' girl I found on the bed, sleeping, sun radiant. No nobleman's pleasure could I imagine except to live beside that body. Towards evening, Odin, you should come around again if you want to talk a girl round. All will be lost unless only we know of such shamelessness together. Back I turned and thought that I loved, turned back from my certain pleasure. This I thought that I would have, all her heart and her love play. When next I came, all the keen warrior band were awake. With burning torches and barricading wood, such a wretched path was determined for me. And near morning when I came again, then the hall company was asleep. A bitch I found and tied on the bed of that good woman. Many a good girl, when you know her well, is fickle of heart towards men. I found that out when I tried to seduce that sagacious woman into shame. Every degradation the clever woman devised for me, and I got nothing from the girl at all. At home a man should be cheerful and merry with his guests. He should be shrewd about himself, with a good memory and eloquent if he wants to be very wise. Often should he speak of good things. A nincompoop that man is called, who can't say much for himself. That is the hallmark of a moron. I visited the old giant, now I've come back. I didn't get much there from being silent. With many words I spoke to my advantage in Sutung's halls. Gunnlod gave me on her golden throne a drink of the precious mead. A poor reward I let her have in return for her open-heartedness, for her sorrowful spirit. With Rati the augur's mouth I made space for myself and made it gnaw through the rock. Over me and under me went the giant's pass, thus I risked my head. That bargain-bought beauty I made good use of, the wise lack for little. For Odorir has now come up to the rim of men's sanctuaries. I am in doubt as to whether I would have come back from the giant's courts, if I had not used Gunnlod, that good woman, and put my arms about her. The next day the frost giants went to ask for the High One's advice in the High One's hall. They asked about Bolverk, whether he was amongst the gods, or whether Suttung had slaughtered him. I think Odin will have sworn a sacred ring oath. How can his pledge be trusted? He left Suttung defrauded of the drink, and made Gunnlod weep. It is time to declaim from the sage's high seat at Erd Spring. I saw and was silent. I saw and I considered. I heard the speech of men. I heard talk of runes, nor were they silent about interpretation at the High One's hall, in the High One's hall. Thus I heard them speak. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. Don't get up at night except if you're on watch, or if you need to visit somewhere outside. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. In a witch's arms you should never sleep, so she encloses you with her limbs. She'll bring it about that you won't care about the assembly or the king's business. You won't want food nor the society of people. Sorrowful you'll go to sleep. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. Never entice another's wife to you as a close confidant. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. On mountain or fjord, should you feel like traveling, make sure you've enough food along. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. Never let a wicked man know of any misfortune you suffer, for from a wicked man you will never get a good thought in return. I saw a man terribly wounded by a wicked woman's words. A malicious tongue brought about his death, and by no means through proven guilt. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice, and it will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. You know, if you've a friend, one whom you trust well, go to see him often, for brushwood grows and tall grass on the road which no one treads. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. Draw to you a good man in friendly intimacy and learn helpful charms all your life. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. With your friend never be the first to tear frightened friendship asunder. Sorrow eats the heart if you don't have someone to whom to tell all your thoughts. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. You should never bandy words with a stupid fool, for from a wicked man you will never get a good return, but a good man will make you assured of favor through his praise. That is the true meaning of kinship, when a man can tell someone all his thoughts. So anything is better than to be fickle. He is no true friend who only says pleasant things. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. Not 3 quarrelsome words should you bandy with an inferior. Often the better retreats when the worse man fights. I advise you, Lord Fafnir, to take this advice. It will be useful if you learn it. Do you good if you have it. Be neither a shoemaker nor a shaft maker for anyone but yourself. If the shoe is badly fitting, or if the shaft be crooked,